This will be chairing today's hearing. Senate Intel Committee Chair Tom Cotton. He joins us now. You know, Senator Cotton, I imagine you had a whole lineup of questions until about 12 p.m. yesterday when the Goldberg story broke. Is this going to change at all your focus with Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, good morning, everyone. Obviously, the group chat that was in the news yesterday will be discussed, but I hope the focus of the hearing remains the topic of the hearing, which is worldwide threats. I commend the Trump administration's intelligence leaders on focusing on those threats. You know, for 4 years, we got reports that talked about climate change or green energy. Now we have reports that focus on the flow of illicit fentanyl across our borders from Mexican drug cartels, or the cooperation you see between countries like Communist China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. So there's no questions yesterday's news will come up, I suspect, but I do hope that the focus of the hearing remains on the threats that America faces and the actions we need to take to deter those threats.
So I know the President of the United States has already said, indicated through sources, Michael Waltz is not, his job is not in jeopardy, and that he has very little respect for the Atlantic magazine. And having said that, he feels like it gave it additional life, perhaps because of this. Having said that, what questions do you have about the whole situation? What would you like to see come out of this?
Well, I agree with the president. I think Mike Waltz and Pete Hegseth and the whole national security team is doing a great job, as evidenced by the campaign against the outlaw rebels in Yemen over the last 2 weeks. The president took decisive action, as in contrast to Joe Biden, who let our sailors hang out in the Red Sea like sitting ducks for 15 months. They took action despite the fact that this not only benefits the United States, but it benefits Israel and Europe. It's a simple fact that there are some actions around the world that only the United States can take. Only the United States has the military strength to undertake some of these actions. And we should do those when it's in our interest, but also when it's in the interest of our friends in places like Israel and Europe. Again, I'm confident that this group chat story from yesterday's news will come up today at the hearing, and that John Ratcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, and the other leaders will have a chance to address it. But I do hope that we keep the focus on the decisive action that the president took against these outlaw rebels in Yemen, who are backed, let's remember, by Iran.
So, Senator, can we just talk about Signal for a second? Because part of the reporting was that they were on Signal. Now, I do think it's an issue having the Atlantic reporter on that. But you're on the intelligence community. I know this for a fact. Many people in the intelligence community use Signal. They have communication all the time. Is that not correct?
Lawrence, that is correct. In fact, I bet a bunch of those senators that you see at the hearing today are using Signal as well
100%.
to speak to each other or to speak to their aides. And it is my understanding that the Biden administration authorized Signal as a means of communication that was consistent with presidential record-keeping requirements for its administration, and that continued into the Trump administration. It's simply another messaging app like the iMessage app on your iPhone or email servers that every administration has set up, in which senior administration officials can communicate with each other.
Right, and that is why, you know, there are rules about keeping records, and that's why so many people leave the White House and go across the street to, back in the day, Caribou Coffee, and we'll just talk about the secret stuff right over a tall pike. Okay, that's Starbucks. Since you are here talking about the threats that are going to be revealed by the intel community folks today, Senator, tell us about put stuff on our radar that we should be worried about and you're going to be discussing in your committee hearing.
Well, since we're talking about these outlaw rebels in Yemen who are backed by Iran, I think we should talk about Iran and the threat it poses to the United States. You know, oftentimes the threat of a nuclear Iran is addressed towards our friends in Israel or the Arab world, and certainly it's more immediate to them. But just in a few short years, if we let Iran get nuclear weapons, they could be targeting us here in the United States. Iran has a space launch program, which is flimsy cover for an intercontinental missile program. So if we were to allow Iran to get nuclear weapons, they could have missiles to deliver those weapons, not just to Israel, but to the United States in just a few short years, exactly the way North Korea does now. So that's why President Trump has said we're in the final hours of this conflict over Iran's nuclear weapons. And I expect we'll address that in the hearing today as well, why Iran's nuclear program is a pressing and urgent threat, not just to our friends in the Middle East, but to the United States itself.
Yeah, worth
Right.
mentioning that strike against the Houthis went off without a hitch. It was long overdue and part of that broad strategy against Iran. Senator Cotton, thank you. We'll be watching.
Senator.
Senator